Hi, welcome to Candid Chats on Cancer. I'm Mary Robinson.
I'm Jamie Moore. Mary, who are we chatting with today?
We are chatting with a survivor, Amberly Wagner Connolly. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Of course, I'm glad to be here.
Good.
Thank you very so much. So can you tell us about your journey with cancer? What kind did you have?
Yeah, sure. It's kind of a long one now. I'm getting close to a full decade of surviving. So I should be good at telling the story by now, but it comes out every time different. So
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Sure does. Yeah, so when I was about 28, I was pregnant with my twins. And at about 20 weeks, I had a grand mal seizure in the middle of the night and had to go by ambulance.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, it was crazy. And they ruled out everything and decided that, it was pretty much a fluke and I could almost forget that it didn't happen, just hope that it didn't happen again. They ruled out preeclampsia and things like that. And then it happened again at 37 weeks, exact same thing, grand mal in the middle of the night. Went to the hospital, ended up getting induced, same thing. They scanned my brain at that point and everything was all good. And they offered for me to go on seizure meds at that time. And thought it must be related to the pregnancy, and I just kind of agreed and thought, yeah, it must be. Just hoped that I would never have to deal with that again. And then about the twins are about 12 weeks, I had just gone back to work maybe a week ago. I was working full-time as a nurse, and I had had a lump in my breast for a while, and I had told a few doctors about it a couple different times. They thought it was related to pregnancy and breastfeeding and that kind of thing, and didn't think much of it, and I kind of just put it in the back of my mind and didn't really think of it often. Sometimes I'd be a little bit worried, like it would come up and I'd mention it. And I finally decided to get a new family practice doctor and brought it up at an appointment, just like no big deal. I think I was there for a sinus infection or something like that, and said, yeah, and I have this lump that I've had for a while. They said it's no big deal, and she felt it and she's like, wow, honey, I think this is concerning. And I was surprised by that. Still didn't think much of it, Denial's like a super powerful thing, and that was the last thing from my mind because I had a 4-year-old and then the newborn twins, and still at that point, cancer didn't even really cross my mind.
So and you were probably breastfeeding, so you might have had milk ducts.
Yeah, exactly.
They maybe related it to that or whatnot.
Yeah, and I'd had it for maybe a year up till that point.
Oh, wow, that's a long time.
So did you have the lump before you got pregnant, or while you were pregnant you discovered the lump?
I noticed it probably early in pregnancy, so I'm pretty sure I was pregnant by the time I noticed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. And then, so it was pretty fast-paced after that family practice, who I pretty much credit for saving my life at that point. She's amazing, and I ended up getting, a mammogram and a biopsy and all that, and finding out pretty quickly. So at that point, I got the biopsy, and I remember the doctor told me to bring someone back with me when I came to get the results, and he wanted me to get the results in person, which I thought was kind of strange.
Did it take long to get your results back?
No.
Did you have to wait a week? Or?
Yeah, maybe a week. I'm sure it felt long at the time. Yeah.
It always feels longer waiting for the results to get back.
Yeah, but then again, like I said, it was so far from my mind that it would ever, you could have, I would have never believed you if you would have told me that it was going to come back as cancer,
Now, I got a question to ask. Do you think maybe that you were a little colored about being cancer because you are an RN? Did you have it in the back of your mind that maybe this could be cancer and you just kind of put it off, or because you're a nurse, you were very aware of what your body was and we're making people become more aware?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always wonder that, because being a nurse affects you a ton. And I kind of think that I was an advocate for myself more than I maybe would have been. And I also have seen a lot of things as a nurse, and so I know how bad it could be. And I actually lost my sister-in-law to brain cancer, maybe about 14 years ago now, so not long before I had been diagnosed. So I knew bad things could happen, of course, but you never imagine it to be yourself.
Especially your young age, she just had babies,
Yeah, and I had so much other stressful stuff going on that, that would be the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, yeah, I was pretty shocked, and so I still didn't want to bring anybody with me, because I was like, yeah, no big deal, and luckily I did. I brought my husband and my good friend, and he came into the room, and he was like, just like normal, just seemed so normal. I would have never expected those words to come out. And he said, I'm really sorry, but it did come back as cancer. remember thinking, you must have the wrong person or the wrong test. Like at that point, that was really, I was trying to deny it or not believe it, but it was true, unfortunately.
Well, what stage were you?
So I didn't find out at that point. Things were a lot different even 10 years ago, I hear.
Yes.
Things have changed a ton. And at that point, you had surgery first and then chemo. So I didn't know much. They actually did this, what they call a sentinel node biopsy at the time.
Okay, what's that mean?
They use some type of method to see if the cancer has spread to lymph nodes.
Okay.
And so they do that right there on the table in the surgery. I got real lucky with my plastic surgeon. I had to get a couple opinions before I actually found the surgeon that I used for my surgery. I didn't realize how important it was to get a second opinion at that point.
Right.
I got lucky though, and my surgeon was trained on the West Coast, and he knew about a surgery called a skin-sparing mastectomy. And so,
skin-sparing mastectomy?
I've never heard of that.
yeah, not many people have. I hadn't at the time.
Can you kind of elaborate on that one for us? So basically what they're doing is they're trying to retain as much of your breast tissue as possible?
Yep, and so I guess not everybody's a candidate, but because I had breastfed and had kids and things, that you have to have some extra skin, I guess, and they were able to actually place my implants at the time that they removed my breast and stretch the skin over and sew me up. And
that was so nice, I'm sure.
it sure was. It saved me a ton of pain and surgeries. I've seen women go through much worse surgeries over time. It takes a really long time, and my surgeon at the time, he said, you know, you're young, it's really important that you wake up with a mound. And I didn't really understand what he meant, and I didn't really believe him, but he was right. It's weird, yeah.
So have you had nipples tattooed on or anything like that?
No, actually I still haven't. That's still the last step that I should do at some point, and I haven't had a tattoo yet, and I say, yeah, my first tattoo will probably be nipples, as weird as that is, but someday I might if I'm bored, yeah.
It's probably not your first priority.
Yeah, it really has kind of gone to the bottom of the to-do list over the last 10 years.
Yeah, you know, tattoos anyway they're just tattoos.
Yeah.
So did you, since you were able to have the mounds when you woke up, did you have that feeling of self-consciousness or anything like that when you woke up? And like, you know, did you see the scars, and did that affect you like you thought it would?
Yeah, it didn't affect me as bad as what I would have thought. I think they did a great job. It was pretty shocking, I have to say. I remember I was embarrassed because one of my surgeons, he said, do you want to know what you first said when you woke up? And I'm like, I don't know. And he said, do I have boobs and are they big? Not, am I going to live or die? Super embarrassing.
So funny.
Yeah.
I'm sure your husband was laughing at that one.
Yeah, I don't know if he was there in that moment, but.
Oh, that's funny.
All right, well, talking about big or little, how did they figure out what size to make you?
Yeah, and that probably, now that I think about it, that's probably why I had that question, because they didn't really know. They couldn't tell me, you know, it wasn't even a question I had, but he said we won't know what type, you know, there's all different shapes that they could place based on this and that, and he didn't really even give me an estimation on size or what they would be, and so I think probably I think he said it was 500 cc's, which is probably a lot for someone that gets them on top of breast, but since they removed all of the breast tissue, it made them normal size, and so I think they turned out pretty good.
Well, good for
Happy
you.
with it, yeah.
Did you ever have to do anything different with them? You've had them for what, 9 years now? Is that correct? You're a survivor for 9 years?
Yeah. Yep. I'll be 10. I had them removed about 10 years in March this year coming up. So, what was your question?
I was just asking if you ever had to have them touched up, or you know, if they last forever.
Yeah, he said I would be in my grave like this, which is pretty cool. But they did have to I had to have a couple like revision type things.
Okay.
Maybe just some removal of some skin and some minor things, but it was pretty easy compared to what most women go through, for sure.
Yeah, because a lot of women go through the surgery and then have the reconstructive surgery.
Takes about a year usually.
A year later,
yeah. And I've met women that travel even to have different types like tram flap surgeries and things that seem really complicated. So I try to tell as many people as I can that it's even an option. I know it's not an option for everyone, but I also think that really helps people see the importance of a second opinion.
Right.
Yeah, what made you decide that? Did you know you had time to actually wait for a second opinion, And who gave you the idea to do that, or did you come up with that on your own?
Yeah, luckily my good friend, she knew that I didn't feel completely comfortable with the first opinion and was just kind of really overwhelmed with all of it and not feeling like I had a decision on what was going to happen, and just it seemed really daunting, everything that he said that I had to go through. And she knew a name of a guy who she just wished for me to talk to, and I'm so glad that I did. And he was actually a bright light throughout all of it, and I feel like, you know, I was so happy to have met him during that time.
And he's here in Omaha?
Yep.
Oh, that's good. So she didn't even have to travel.
Really? That is
Yep.
wonderful. What's his name?
His name's Douglas Ramos.
Douglas Ramos.
Yep.
He's still working.
He is, yep. He sure is, yep. He helps a lot of women, I know that.
Oh, good.
Good. So you were 28 years old when you originally got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
You had a brand new set of babies. Did you have any other kids at
Yeah, I
the
had a
time?
daughter who had just turned 4, and then the twins are a boy and a girl, yep.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a crazy time for sure.
So, support system.
Yeah, I'm lucky that I had one. I remember thinking many times I don't know what would have happened if I didn't have the good support that I did, but my husband was great. My mother-in-law, my mother lived nearby and had some good friends that helped. And so I was really lucky. I often wondered what it would be like if I was a military mom or a single mom, how
Right.
awful that could have been. So I got really lucky.
Yeah, you did. And you had friends around, so they were able to help too.
Yes, yes, and with the seizures and everything, I wasn't able to drive for a long period of time during that time too, so that made it extra stressful.
Yeah, you can't drive for what, a year? Something like that with seizures?
Yeah.
6 months,
6
but I could be
months?
wrong.
Actually, I think it's 3. I've
Is
heard
it
that
3?
Nebraska doesn't have very strict laws compared to most states, and so they have pretty lax laws when it comes to seizures.
So
and driving.
did they ever figure out why your seizures and what are they related to your cancer?
So I ended up having another set of grand mal seizures 2 weeks after my mastectomy. And so at that point I wasn't pregnant, so knew that it wasn't, you know, and I think everyone was pretty scared that it was probably the cancer that was causing it. But I had another clean brain scan and pretty much decided that I had meningitis when I was a baby, when I was about 9 months old.
Okay.
They think that it could have been related to that, and I had never been worn down enough
Right.
to hit the threshold to cause that.
And your brain just didn't slow down enough for the seizures to come through.
Yeah, and so luckily it wasn't the cancer. It just was kind of the timing of
It was
everything.
Malnutrition.
Something, yeah. I think the pregnancy and just having the big tumor and the stress of all of that, I think, yeah, so.
Now, how many kids do you have now? Were you able to have children? Because you did say you had chemo, right?
Yep.
Did
I
you have radiation as well?
No, I did 6 months of chemo and I did a year of Herceptin treatment because of the type of cancer that I had. And so I was a stage 2, grade 3 ductal invasive carcinoma. And it was
Okay, that's
that's
a
big.
mouthful.
Yeah, it took me a while to even be able to say that myself. But
So one more time.
let's see. So stage 2, grade
Okay.
3 ductal invasive carcinoma. And that's not even all of it. It was hormone receptor negative
Okay.
and HER2 receptor positive. And so I was able to take a medication called Herceptin for a year. And yeah.
So the Herceptin is to block something, or
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know the exact science behind it, but basically it's a kind of like a receptor blocker, I believe, and was able to, luckily this type of treatment has really helped. My type of cancer is a pretty aggressive, fast-growing
Right.
cancer, and in, you know, a decade or two ago was pretty much most likely fatal within 5 years for most people. And it's really changed since Herceptin was invented, and so I got really lucky to not be born in I was born in the 80s, so I'm lucky that it was discovered, and luckily it hasn't come back, and there's a lot of treatment options if it would ever happen to come back for that type, so.
How did they find your type? Was it through blood or tissue? Or
Yeah, through tissue. There's different types of testing. It's even more advanced now, I believe, but it has to do with, I believe they were able to test it pretty quickly and get those testing for the hormone receptors and that type of thing. So yeah, I guess it's pretty rare, the type that I have, but it's also rare to get it that young, so.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And you probably, if I understand correctly, you couldn't be on estrogen or progesterone or anything like that, correct?
Well, I didn't need to be because of the hormone receptor. It wasn't associated with those.
Oh,
and so a lot of women have to take, you'll hear them take tamoxifen or a drug like that for about 5 to 10 years,
Right.
but I got to skip that. I only had to take meds I was on an IV medication for a year, and then after that I haven't had to do anything except yearly checkups, so got really lucky.
That is lucky.
It sure is. And then I was just going to say, so 4 of my kids came after cancer. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
4 more, Jamie.
Yeah.
So you were
Okay.
still fertile after the chemo.
Yeah.
It didn't
Yeah,
affect anything.
it did at the time. I mean, I went into menopause, basically did the whole hot flash, all that thing, got a little taste of how bad that is.
I've been there.
Totally sucks, yeah.
Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah, nobody can prepare you for that. You hear people complain about it, and you're just like, yeah, but then you're like,
Been there,
whoa.
done that.
Yeah, not fun.
But you actually got your period back?
Yeah.
And your menstrual cycle and
Yep.
everything?
Yep.
Wow.
Did
I
they
kind of
have
think
to
it
test
reset
their
me or
eggs or
something.
anything to make sure they were fine?
No, I mean, before I remember them bringing it up, it's basically like, you've got 3, you're good with that, right? And I'm like, yeah, definitely, because at that point I was
Yeah.
like more than good. Yeah, because it
You're
was a
just
stressful time.
Happy to be alive, I'm
Yes,
sure.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I would have never thought that I would have only had 3. I always thought I'd have 5, but I was good with 3 at that point, and never thought that I would have more. And then so got pregnant with my first miracle baby, and she was born, and I thought it was just a fluke. And then 4 months later was when my niece got dropped off at my doorstep. She was 9.
Oh.
And then a year or so later, post-cancer baby number 2. A year or so later, post-cancer baby number 3. And
Wow.
we ended on that one, so lucky number 7.
It's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Because usually they say that the eggs get destroyed with chemo, or
Yeah.
we've even had some people get recommended that, they harvest their eggs before
Yeah,
they start all this.
yeah, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really neat.
It
So
sure
how
is.
old are the kids now?
So they're 15 down to 2. So
Jeez.
finally at the baby stage, which is nice.
And
Yeah.
I have to tell you, she does work full time, and so does her husband. And obviously, this breast cancer wasn't stress related, because I'm sure you get stressed a little bit.
Or I get
don't
it
you?
back again by now.
Well, no, I shouldn't have said
Just
that.
kidding.
But
No, I know what you
Well,
mean.
Yeah, I
stress
agree with
can,
you.
I mean,
yeah.
stress can cause things to happen, but
Yeah, it sure can.
you're obviously doing very well. You
Yeah.
had several more babies, and wow, 9 years out, so you're cured, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's a word that they use, but I'd say pretty darn close.
Wow.
Yeah.
I
I'd
thought it
say
was
after
after
9
5 years.
I think the numbers anymore just plain old don't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's all in your mind too.
I do too.
Yeah.
If
I-
you
I'm
can be
feeling I'm
cancer free
cured.
after a year,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
as far as I feel.
Yeah.
I think I'm cured.
I do too.
Oh, yeah.
And we're both, you just passed a year.
Yeah, in
the
August.
second time around.
Awesome.
Yes, yeah,
And-
second time around.
And I'm coming up on a year in November.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is coming up.
yeah,
Congratulations.
so all of us we're all doing quite well.
Yeah.
So you are an RN.
Yep, I sure am.
So what type?
Oh, let's see. Well, I teach. I'm actually in administration now. I got 2 degrees after that, too. I was finishing up my master's in
I'm
nursing
sorry, but
during
I
all
just
that
can't
time.
imagine. I am tired
I
after
I know.
my bout with everything. I couldn't
It is
imagine
tiring.
doing that.
Yeah,
And having more babies.
I know. Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually started the doctorate degree after I didn't think I was going to have any more. And then I think maybe the first semester in is when I got number 1. So you never
Well,
know.
good for you.
It is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes.
Most people don't even finish their baccalaureate, let alone while going through cancer, chemo, surgery.
Yeah. Nursing's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Like for me, it was a great thing because I had my own clinic, and so when I was sick, I had a nursing staff that would, pick up the pieces for me. I had
Awesome.
my lead nurse was her name was Brenda. She was a NICU nurse, and one of the smartest girls ever. And she'd take one look at me and say, like, you look like you're really tired. I've got the rest of the day. Just write orders for me, and she'd send me home.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good thing about nurses,
Yeah.
especially since I am one.
Yeah. No kidding. I
Um,
totally hear
Well, and
that.
were you working during the time of your working on your doctorate of nursing, or were you able to just focus on that and the children?
I was actually working full time. I just finished that up in 2016. So since I'm in administration and I teach as a nurse, I needed it to kind of move through the ranks. And so
Right.
I just finished that a couple years ago. So that was nice. Yeah.
So what do you teach?
Well, now that I'm in administration, I don't teach as
Okay.
much, but I love to teach public health, global health, women's health. I like a variety of things, but I'd say those are my top 3 that I like to teach.
Those are the ones that we need the most too.
I know. Do you have any
Yeah.
tips on nutrition or anything like that? Or just
Yeah,
positive health,
how are you staying healthy? I mean, how are you keeping a healthy immune system?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm surprised. I actually kind of feel like I'm healthier now than I was before then, and I don't know. I think recently, in the last year or so, I've kind of paid attention more to my diet than I did in the past. I had a really bad diet. I don't know if that was associated with it or if it could be part of what
Right.
came into play or not, but I loved sugar. So
Yeah.
just the last year, I've tried doing more of a keto diet and eliminating sugar, and I really have liked it a lot.
Are you exercising too, or
No.
just having a 2-year-old running around through the house is enough exercise?
Yeah. I remember those days. It's been a while, but
Yeah,
they do keep you busy.
they do. Yeah, I do a lot of sitting for work. I need to exercise more. I need to make that a priority. It was just so hard to fit it in.
Well, you look amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Really.
So do you.
No, thank you.
I'm just trying to do the math. 28 plus 9.
I told you I was born in
She's-
1980, so it's pretty easy.
You look wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean,
thanks.
You
It's
really
so
do.
nice of you.
look extraordinarily wonderful for everything that you're taking on in life.
Aw, so sweet of you.
We're so grateful to have you on the show and tell your
Thanks.
story
Yeah.
because it's going to help so many.
Yeah, it's super important
So-
to tell.
How did you get through having surgery, having chemo, and also having twins all at the same time?
It was rough. I think just taking it day by day and just thanking God for a new day each time, because there were some days that were really hard. I think I had it pretty good compared to what a lot of people do. It really opened my eyes to just how bad it could be. It was a pretty scary time. Yeah.
Well, and at the time, since you said you had chemo and all that, you probably had to quit breastfeeding the infants, right?
Yeah, almost overnight. It was very painful.
Oh, that would be.
Yeah,
That would be.
yeah.
For the infants, or?
For her.
Oh, yeah, never
you know,
mind.
because
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you.
That's okay. I'm a total guy and husband. I
Yeah.
have
it
no
might be
clue.
for the infants too, actually. You could be correct.
It
I don't
could
know.
be. Yeah, I'm
But
sure it was sad.
For
I was thinking
you,
of the
it
poor
was
little
probably
things.
really sad
Yeah, it's
because
sad.
some parents
Their
really,
poor broken hearts.
they want to do that for their children.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
it was tough. It was a lot of work, but and it was tough to have to give it up as quickly as I did. And it was tough to not have that ability with the other kids.
Exactly.
Too. It was
Yeah.
kind of strange. I mean, it's as easy it's a lot easier to bottle feed, really, but it is kind of something that got taken from me that I kind of really wouldn't have realized was important at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, I was going to ask you, since you did go through chemo, did you lose your hair?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And did that affect you at all since you had already had the surgery? Were you feeling a little bit self-conscious or?
Yeah, I think that's another time where I realized probably the mounds came in handy because, he said it's important for you to be able to just throw on a t-shirt and go, and he was so right. And
Right.
you losing your hair as a woman and your eyebrows, you don't realize how important eyebrows are until they're gone or until you draw them on to a blank face.
I lost mine
Yeah.
too. Did you lose yours?
Mm-mm.
And my husband laughed at me because I had like 2 eyelashes on each eye, and I put mascara on them, and he's like, "Why are you doing that, Mary?" And I was like, "I want to feel pretty. I just want a little bit of something."
Yeah.
And the eyebrows, I did try to do something with them. I'm not really a makeup person.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, and so a lot of times I just didn't go out until they grew back.
Yeah, there was a couple times I went to the grocery store and forgot my hat, and would see people that I knew, and it was pretty awkward. Yeah, but I got used to it. It was kind of nice not having hair. Once it started to grow back, it wasn't nearly as embarrassing. People just thought I liked short hair.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, and
Exactly.
it was hard for me to transition to long hair, but I was determined to get my ponytail back.
That is so important.
And that's the way I was the first time I went through this. I wanted to get long hair again. And the second time, I actually kind of like the short hair look.
Yeah, it looks good
I'm
on you.
just growing this part out and keeping it short for a while, and we'll see where it takes me.
Yeah,
So
it gets to a point where it gets kind of hard to grow out. It's at that stage, and you just want to cut it. It's
you
easier.
want to feel pretty, and you want to
Yes.
feel like you have a style. So,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Well, I was also, Jamie, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we're going to probably start wrapping this up a little bit. Wisdom. We love to hear wisdom. What would you say would be the top of the list that you can give to other cancer survivors or people going on their cancer journey right now that are still battling cancer?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind was something that I mentioned just about being an advocate for yourself, just how important that is. And it really is whose hands you end up in. And if you feel something's not right, if you feel there's a different type of treatment or procedure or even a different doctor, go for it. It doesn't hurt your doctor's feelings to seek a second opinion. Sometimes it can open your eyes to a lot of things, especially if you have a rare type of cancer. It's
Right.
really important to seek those out or seek help from family members to help you seek that stuff out, because that can be hard and it takes a lot of work to do those things. I think that's number one. And then I think the best advice I have for myself really is to take each day at a time. I know it sounds cliche, and that just to be thankful for each day. No matter how bad the day seems, luckily you get a fresh start each day, which is so nice. I think that helped me more than anything. And I guess it sounds bad, but it could always be worse. And I think you really realize that when you lose your clean bill of health and you're young, things could really turn on a dime and could be your last day. You never know. And so I think just trying to remember that each day, as hard as it is.
Exactly.
That's, I think, one of the things that Mary and I used to text each other was, you know, if you woke up this morning, God's not done with you yet.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, that got us through got me through a lot of nights, just knowing that, well, woke up in the morning, okay.
You got something else going on.
Got to go to the clinic today. All right.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have time to be sick anymore. Attitude.
Totally.
And I also think it's a lot easier for people to take things in smaller chunks, because you can think about a year down the road and it could be so overwhelming, even a month down the road. But if you just take it one day at a time and focus on that day, you can make it through.
Yeah.
And have that positive attitude.
It is.
Yeah. Truly believe attitude is
And
everything.
as a husband, tell your husband thank you for everything that he did for you, and it still is doing for you.
He sure is.
That's a great thing.
Yeah, I got so lucky. Thank you. I'll tell him.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks so much for being on
No
the
problem.
show.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
very much.
We hope you join us again next time for Candid Chats on Cancer.
And we'll see you. Have a wonderful day.